Alright guys, had to do a lot of errands this morning, running all over the place. Went to Fastenal, went to Ace Hardware, went to O'Reilly's, and I went to Aztec Locksmith. And pretty much, if I drive just a little bit more this way, I wind up at Claremore Lake Park, and she likes it here, so thought I'd bring her down, let her do her dog thing, and do a little sniffing, a little exploring. Yeah, we'll stay down here about, I don't know, 10 minutes or so, and then, oh, would you look at that? Hey Kiki, look at this. She'll always go chase it, but she never retrieves it. Yep, that's what I thought. All right, we'll save that for the next dog that comes down here. So anyway, I went to Aztec Locksmith, and it cost me 23 bucks, but I got 2 keys made for the lock set on the car, so now the trunk and the doors match. I looked at buying a brand new set, but it was man, like 60 bucks or something, I don't remember. It was definitely cheaper to have a key made. I don't care that the glove box door doesn't lock, that doesn't bother me. And also the ignition switch I'm going to be using is a aftermarket style, so it's not like factory at all. A little cheaper than the original one. I think the one I use is like $12. It's from O'Reilly's, and it's called, the part number is a CS7. So Cat Sam 7. That's one, I want to say it's like 12 bucks, but what I like about it is it has actual little nuts on the back of it that you can put ring terminals on and bolt it on instead of having just spades that clip on there. But anyway, I went to O'Reilly's. I got some engine degreaser. I got an air filter for my old school dual snorkel air cleaner. I don't even know what year that thing's from, but I've had it for a while. I've had it on several cars, but I misplaced the air filter that I had in it. It's brand new and I couldn't find it, so I got a Wix. And then I also got me a Wix oil filter for the 305. And what else did I get? So I went to Fastenal first thing. It's kind of a little bit out of my way. It's going toward Tulsa. Lots of bolts and stuff there, but when I get there, they're out of almost everything I needed. They only had like 3 or 4 of the items I needed out of like 20. So I was getting pretty irritated. And then, so I went down here to Ace Hardware, which if you've ever bought bolts from an Ace Hardware, 1 7/16 by 20 bolt that's like 2 inches long was almost $2 for one. So give her some water here. But anyway, I pulled the bin out and there was only 1 bolt. And then I went to pull the bin out for the 7/16 by 20 nuts, and there was 0 in the bin. So out of that store I went, a little angry, but this is going to be one of them days, man. So now I can't even assemble the front suspension because I can't find bolts and nuts. I did go down to my local Atwoods where you can buy grade 8 hardware by the pound. So they didn't have any fine thread there. It was all coarse thread, and I'm not going to put coarse thread bolts in a suspension part. You get more surface area on a fine thread, so I'll have to order them online or something. I'm going to get back and look on eBay and see if there's a place that sells them each or something. I don't know. I don't need a box of them, you know what I mean? But the other thing was at Atwoods was, being as it was by the pound, I got all my washers, lock washers, flat washers, and I even just grabbed handfuls of 3/8 by 16 bolts for the body mounts to bolt the body down, because I want to put all new hardware in the body to frame too. So anyway, I don't know how many pounds it was. See if I can find the receipt. It was actually pretty interesting. It's heavy. I was just throwing stuff in there. $3.99 pounds, and it cost me $14.44. That's pretty awesome. That's all grade 8 hardware. I mean, I just grabbed handfuls of stuff, but I know it's stuff I'll eventually use, but there's, you know, chassis and, well, not chassis, but body to frame, and I got some nuts and washers, and I got 1/4 inch, 5/16, 3/8. I got all kinds of stuff. But anyway, get home and get back to work, or get started, because I ain't even got started yet. Jeez. All right, guys, I'm putting in new axle seals. Hopefully. Tube. Hated to hit on that aluminum handle with a hammer because it nicks it all up. All right. These are kind of nice to have if you don't have them. It's a seal and race driver deal. This is an inexpensive one. I actually got this at a car show. There was a guy selling tools there, and it was, I want to say it was like 15 bucks or something, or 20 bucks. I was like, I'm buying that. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and put the pinion seal in it, because with it being out here in the open, it's going to be a lot nicer to put together. I'm going to go ahead and put the pinion seal in it, put the pinion back on it. I think I'll wait until I put the axles in after it's in the frame. That way it doesn't add a lot of weight to it, because I got to take it over there. I'll see if my neighbor's home. He usually don't like to come out in the heat, but he has been lately, but we'll see. Anyway, back with you all in a minute. All right, so I got the new pinion seal in. I always take a little bit of this Vaseline. Just about anything, whether it be an O-ring or any rubber seal, I will use this stuff on where that rubber seal is going to be. So I'll take a little bit and run around that. But I'll also take just a little bit of my finger and go around this where the seal's going to ride on this yoke. Can't really get in there to that pinion seal with that Vaseline, so on the axles, I'll put, I've already cleaned these with brake clean, and then I wire wheeled off the lug nut studs because they were pretty rusty. I'm not going to worry about painting all this into this axle, none of that. You won't see it anyway. Anyway, I'm going to put a little, I sanded this with 320 grit. This is something to check for if you've ever pulled your axles out, is on these 10 bolts or 12 bolts, check the axle right here where the bearing rides. Sometimes they'll be all chewed up and eat into, and it's just you'll have a little growl going on back there. If you do find that, you'll have to replace the axle and you'll have to replace a bearing for sure, but I'll have to pull my cover off and pull the pin back out before I put the axle seals in. Now when I took this apart, if you can see that little L I scribed in there, a little die grinder with a burr bit. It's just very light, it's not very deep, but I put an L on that one so I know this is left side. I didn't need to mark the other one because I don't have to mark that one, but anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get the pinion put back on, or the yoke put back on the pinion, and I guess I'll clean the other axle and get it ready. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and put the axles in. Pre-lube. Basically, you push the axle in really far, and then you take your C-clip and you slip it into the notch and you hold it, and then you pull the axle back out and it puts it down inside a cutout that's the same diameter as the outer diameter of the C-clip, so it locks it in there until you get your pin in anyway. This is a single track, but if you have a posi unit, it's a little bit more difficult to get the C-clips in. It's not quite as simple. This pin has a hole going through it, and your bolt has a long pin that goes into that, and that's what holds that in there after you tighten this down. Boring stuff, I know. So I've talked about this before. When you do your rear end covers on these 10 bolts, you pretty much just clean the surface. I use brake cleaning, carburetor cleaner, lacquer thinner, whatever I got handy, which in this case brake cleaning right here, so I'll just use it. So anyway, I'll clean the surface real good on it. And then I will clean the surface on the rear end cover. Now I've already cleaned these with a Scotch-it disc on my 90-degree angle grinder. I did that before I bolted it back together, keep the oil from dripping out all over my fresh paint. So everything is clean and dry. I also set this flange down on the edge of my carport, the lower bar down there. And I used a ball peen hammer, just a small one, the flat part. And I knocked these back in because these can get pushed inward. So if you want this to seal again real good, you need to knock each one of those in. It doesn't take much, just a little hit there. But anyway, and then you install your gasket completely dry. Don't put any silicone on it or you will hate life when you go to replace it or get in there to do something. Anyway, I learned to do it this way, and that way if you ever have to take it back apart. If you've ever taken these apart and they've never been apart, they have a gasket with no silicone sealer on it. Now they may have done this later on the production, but not for the model of 10 bolts I mess with anyway, these little 7.5s. So I'm replacing it with some little socket cap Allens that I had here in my stainless drawer. I don't remember what length these are. They are 5/16 by 18. You got to watch some of these later 10 bolts, like the MS-10 Blazer 10 bolts, because they're metric. I don't have any anti-seize here, so, or not out here. I have it in there at the back of the garage, but I'll just take some of this old rear end oil and put on there for a little bit of thread lubricant for that stainless steel. Anytime you have a stainless steel bolt, you really need to put some anti-seize on it. But in this case, oh, that one's got oil in it. It's better than dry. Really sucks this rear end cover's pitted, man. If this thing wouldn't have been so pitted, it'd be a heck of a lot nicer looking. But don't really care. It's not a showpiece. Of course, when I do something, I always want it to look the best it can, but it don't always work out that way. At least it looks kind of cool with them bolts on there. I do have a little cordless impact here, but I just don't want to attempt it. These hardware store stainless steel bolts are grade 2 on the scale. So they're not very strong. So the last thing you want to do is probably use something like that, or you're going to break it off in there. I remember a long time ago, about 20 years ago, I was putting stainless steel socket caps in something on a car, and one of my buddies was over here and he goes, "Well, that's going to be a pain in the butt if you ever have to work on it." And I said, "Why is that?" He goes, "Because you got to get an Allen socket." And I was like, "What's the difference in getting a 1/2-inch socket?" Either one of them goes on the ratchet. Does it make it more difficult? I must have missed something. I have for sure never been afraid of working on a car. So I'm not going super tight, I'm just kind of checking. Make sure it's good. I was going to wait and put the axles in after I got it in the car or in the frame, but I'd be all bent down doing it, so just do it here and be done with it. That really looks 10 times better. Check this out with the painted pinion, or the yoke on it. The gold painted bolt. Gives a little bit of detail. You can see the red around the seal. I actually blasted the old original rubber bump stops here with my little sandblaster. Cleaned them up a little bit. Anyway, guys, I'm going to install this dude. I'm going to go get my neighbor. Alright guys, it's been a terrible day. I am sore, I'm irritated. I have done nothing but have trouble all day long. So as I mentioned earlier, I went to the hardware stores to get, you know, grade 8 stuff, and everybody's out of everything. So I didn't get to get my front suspension bolted on. I did get the upper A arms assembled with the ball joints and everything. The lowers I hadn't done yet. I've got everything laid out, but anyway, I got on to the rear end. I got the yoke put on. I got the wheel cylinders in it. I got the rear end bolted to the leaf springs. And then I started doing my brake lines, and I bought a brand new flaring tool. And it said in the eBay listing, it said Imperial. Imperial is the one I wanted, but Imperial usually has a blue case. So anyway, when I get it home, this is what it says on it. I can't even pronounce it, but what it said on the bottom, it says enough. Anyway, it's a double flaring toolkit, and there's the rest of it right there out of the kit. I am not getting that back out. It is going to stay in there. The flare tool itself, it barely grabs on one side of the bar, so the thing is not even I just don't understand it. The flaring bar itself has got so much slack in it that you can't get it flat to where you can make a good flare. This thing is this is what's wrong with these cheap flaring tools. Once you start putting this together, if they got a lot of slack in them, up and down and forward and back, you're never going to get a good flare. This has to be completely flat, like it has to mate up perfectly to get an even nice flare. You're going to have a leak. All the cheap ones on the market do that. They're just junk. So I've got an old one down here, and but I didn't have any more of the double flare dies, so I used the one out of that kit, and it really doesn't even do a very good job. I had to end up trying to put the bubble part into each end 3 times before I could put the regular flare on. So it's just garbage, man. Every time I try to save money, it just bites me in the butt. So anyway, all these brake lines are done. They're bolted on. I'm done with them. It turned into a mess. I wanted them to look pretty nice, and it was impossible. You know, this rear end's out of a Buick Century, and then I'm trying to put it in a 55 and use 55 rubber brake hose and junction block and bracket and all that. So where this thing is on the rear end, when I put the lines in, I had to bend to go around here, and this is the tiniest little 90-degree bender I got to get a real tight 90. I mean, it does a good job of getting really tight 90s, but it's just this is further back than this, so I had to cut a little shy, and then I had to put a Z in it basically almost to get it to come up to that. I mean, it's been a mess, man. But you know, at least it looks kind of like a junior high kid done it instead of a elementary school kid. So I drilled and tapped the housing for them billet specialties clamps. I've welded on this piece here. I've got another one here I'm going to put on. And then I had to go around this and get it back over to that. The other thing that happened was I went down and got all these sticks, and They all say standard, you know, 3/16 thread, standard thread. So anyway, the very first one that I put on here, I got it all bent and everything. I went to screw it into the wheel cylinder and it wouldn't fit. It was a metric end. So it had a standard tag on it, but it was metric fittings. So I had to cut the end off again and reflare it, and that's why it's a little bit more to this side than here. So I'm telling you, man, you can't buy anything anymore. But anyway, luckily I had some leftover fittings in here from some old lines. I mean, they're new, but it was off lines that I'd cut up. But anyway, I put a short one on and a long one on. I always try to put the long ones in the wheel cylinders. That way it's out a little bit from the backing plate area, so you've got room to get a wrench in there, you know. So, I don't know, just me. And then I put the short ones up here on the block. But, I mean, it doesn't look terrible. It's just not as awesome as I wanted it to be, so I'm not super proud of it. But anyway. I did check this one here. This one is a standard, and it does have the correct fittings on it. Oh, would you look at that? It's not even flared. Brand new stick. It's not even flared. They put the bubble in it, but they didn't flare it down. Awesome. That's some good quality parts right there. Anyway, guys, the wife's home. It's time to put up shop, take a shower, and I'm going to have dinner. So day 4 is done. Thanks for watching.